Ambassador Sarah stood in the Great Hall of Haven Prime, the most important space station in the galaxy. Around her sat representatives from dozens of alien species, all waiting to hear Earth's final answer. The war between the Dominion and the Free World's coalition had been raging for 3 years now, and both sides wanted humanity to join them. Sarah looked at the faces around her. Some were familiar after months of meetings. Others were completely alien, with features that humans could barely understand. But they all wanted the same thing from Earth. "The answer is still no," Sarah said clearly. Her voice carried across the silent hall. "Earth will not join this war. We will defend our own star system, but nothing more." High Archon, the leader of the delegation, made a sound that might have been laughter. His blue-scaled face showed what humans had learned to recognize as disappointment. "Ambassador, your species continues to confuse us. Your military capabilities are impressive, yet you choose to hide behind your star like children." On the other side of the hall, General of the Free World's coalition leaned forward. His bear-like appearance and deep voice made him seem threatening, but Sarah knew he was actually quite reasonable. "To speak truth for once," he rumbled. "Your people have something special. We have all seen the reports, yet you waste it on isolation." Sarah had heard these arguments many times before. Both sides had been studying humanity for over a year now. They had sent spy ships and diplomatic missions. They had analyzed every piece of human technology they could find. The conclusions were always the same and always puzzling to them. Humans fought differently than any other species in the galaxy. Where other races built massive fleets and fought in organized formations, humans seemed to prefer smaller, faster ships that struck without warning. Human military doctrine spoke of things like asymmetric warfare and force multiplication that confused alien military minds. Human ships were built strangely too. They were smaller than most alien vessels but packed with weapons and armor that seemed impossible for their size. They moved in ways that suggested their crews could handle forces that would kill most other species. And then there were the energy readings that human ships gave off, signatures that no alien scientist could fully explain. "Project Prometheus," said suddenly, his large eyes focusing on Sarah. "Your people continue to deny that such a thing exists, yet our sensors detect its signature throughout your space. What are you hiding from us, Ambassador?" Sarah kept her face calm, though inside she felt a moment of concern. The aliens had gotten closer to the truth than Earth's government liked. "I have no idea what you're talking about, High Archon. Perhaps your sensors are malfunctioning." "Sensors do not malfunction across multiple species and fleets," said. "We have all detected these readings, energy patterns that make no sense according to known physics, gravitational anomalies around your outer system that suggest massive construction projects, ships that appear on sensors and then simply vanish." The other alien representatives murmured agreement. Sarah realized that this meeting was not just about asking Earth to join the war anymore. It was about fear. Both sides were becoming afraid of what humanity might be capable of. "Your people treat war like it is both science and art," said Ambassador of the Republic, a smaller member of the coalition. Her voice was musical but worried. "You study every battle, learn from every defeat and victory, adapt faster than any species we have known, yet you claim you want no part in our conflict." "We study war so we can avoid it," Sarah replied. "Earth has seen enough death. We prefer peace." "Peace," repeated, and this time his laugh was bitter. "You call it peace, but our ships that venture too close to your space simply disappear. Pirates who threaten your merchant vessels are never heard from again. You may call it peace, Ambassador, but it looks very much like war to us." Sarah said nothing. That was closer to the truth than she could admit in this room. The real reason Earth would not join the war was simple. Humanity was not ready to reveal what they had become. The past 50 years of space exploration had changed them in ways that the galaxy was not prepared to understand. What the aliens called Project Prometheus, was real, but it was far more than they imagined. "We have made our decision," Sarah said finally. "Earth will remain neutral. We will trade with any species that approaches us peacefully. We will defend ourselves if attacked, but we will not choose sides in your war." The hall erupted in frustrated voices, aliens speaking in dozens of languages, some angry, some pleading, some threatening. Sarah waited for the noise to die down before she spoke again. "However," she said, and the hall fell silent, "let me be very clear about something. Any ship from any faction that threatens human civilians or human territory will be dealt with accordingly. We may choose neutrality, but we do not choose helplessness." And exchanged glances. In that moment, Sarah saw something that pleased her. The two enemies, despite their war, shared the same expression. It was uncertainty, mixed with just a touch of fear. "Very well," said finally. "The Dominion will respect human neutrality, as long as humanity does not interfere with our operations." "The Coalition agrees," added. "But understand, Ambassador, that neutrality in a galaxy at war is a difficult position to maintain." Sarah stood to leave. "General, High Archon, I think you will find that humanity is very good at maintaining difficult positions." As Sarah's ship left Haven Prime, she knew that both factions were already making new plans. If they could not have Earth as an ally, they would make sure their enemies could not either. The galaxy was about to learn that there were worse things than having humanity as an enemy. There was having humanity as a neighbor you had underestimated. 6 months had passed since Ambassador's final refusal at Haven Prime. The war between the Dominion and the Free World's coalition had grown worse, spreading to new star systems every week. Both sides now positioned their fleets closer to human space, claiming it was for strategic reasons. Admiral commanded the Fourth Fleet from his flagship, the Eternal Glory. His blue-scaled hands moved across the command console as he studied the tactical display. The human Sol system lay just 2 jumps away, marked in neutral white on his screen. Admiral, his intelligence officer, Ra, approached with a data pad. "The weekly reports from our patrol ships." Took the pad and frowned. More disappearances. 3 scout ships in the past month, all vanished while conducting routine surveys near the edge of human space. No distress signals, no wreckage, no trace of what had happened to them. "Pirates?" asked, though he knew it was unlikely. "No, sir. Pirates leave wreckage or demand ransom. These ships simply stopped existing." On the other side of the Sol system, commander of the Coalition's 7th Fleet was reading similar reports. Her human heritage made her valuable to the Coalition, one of the few people who might understand how other humans thought. But even she was puzzled by what was happening. 3 destroyers this month, her aide reported. All lost during exercises near the belt. The last transmission from them was normal, then nothing. Stared at the star chart. The pattern was becoming clear, though she did not like what it suggested. Ships from both sides were disappearing, but only when they got too close to areas where humans operated. Merchant vessels, mining platforms, civilian traffic, none of those were being touched. "Ma'am," her communications officer called out. "Priority message from Fleet Command." The message was brief and disturbing. Intelligence had detected unusual energy readings throughout human space. Massive power signatures that did not match any known human installations. Gravitational anomalies that suggested the presence of very large objects that somehow did not appear on any sensors. Most worrying of all were the reports from merchant captains of various species. They spoke of human cargo ships that seemed to appear from nowhere when pirates attacked. The pirates would simply vanish, and the human ship would disappear just as mysteriously, leaving no trace except grateful survivors. Back on his flagship, Admiral called a meeting with his senior officers. The conference room was filled with his most trusted commanders, all looking concerned about the recent losses. "We have a problem. Our patrols near human space are disappearing. The Coalition is losing ships too, but they blame us. We blame them. I am beginning to think we are both wrong." Captain Commander of the heavy cruiser Vengeance leaned forward. "Admiral, are you suggesting the humans are responsible? They claim neutrality." "Neutrality," repeated. "Yes, they claim that, but consider this. When did our losses begin? Right after Ambassador left Haven Prime. When do they occur? Only when we venture close to human operations. And notice what else: pirate activity in this region has dropped to almost nothing." Intelligence Officer Ra activated the main display. It showed a three-dimensional map of local space, with red dots marking where ships had vanished. The pattern was unmistakable. Every lost ship had been within 50 light-years of a human presence. "Sir, I have a theory," Ra said carefully. "What if the humans were never neutral? What if they have been hunting?" The room fell silent. The idea was ridiculous, yet it explained everything. One species, claiming to want peace, systematically removing any threat to their interests without ever being seen doing it. "Impossible," Captain said. "One species cannot intimidate the entire galaxy." "Can they not?" Ra replied. "Sir, consider the evidence. Human ships are smaller but somehow more powerful than ours. Human crews survive accelerations that would kill us. Their technology gives off energy readings that we cannot explain. What if they are more advanced than we realized?" Admiral stood and walked to the display. The red dots seemed to mock him. 3 years of war, and now this new mystery. If the humans are responsible, then they are either helping the Coalition or they consider everyone a threat. "There is one way to find out," Captain suggested. "Test them. Send a probe ship into their territory on a mission they cannot ignore. And if we are right, if they are responsible for our losses, then at least we will know," replied, "and we can plan accordingly." Meanwhile, aboard the human cargo ship Peaceful Trader, Captain Martinez was having a quiet conversation with his crew. They had just finished escorting a merchant vessel through an area known for pirate activity. The pirates had not shown up. "That's the 4th convoy this month," his first officer said. "Either we're getting lucky or someone else is handling the pirates." Captain Martinez smiled grimly. "Lieutenant, we both know luck has nothing to do with it." Through his ship's sensors, he could detect the faint traces of the hunter-killers that followed every human vessel. Ships that existed in the spaces between normal space, waiting for someone to threaten their charges. The aliens called them ghosts or sensor phantoms. Humans called them insurance. The real question was not whether humanity was hunting threats in their territory. The question was how long they could keep doing it without being noticed, and what would happen when the galaxy finally figured out what they were really capable of. Deep in space, Admiral made his decision. "Prepare a reconnaissance mission. I want to know what the humans are hiding in that asteroid belt of theirs." He did not know that his decision had already been detected by sensors he could not imagine. Nor did he know that the response was already being prepared by weapons he did not know existed. The hunters had been circling for months. Soon, someone would finally cross the line. Admiral stood before the War Council in the capital ship Dominion's Pride. Around him sat the most powerful military leaders in the galaxy, their blue faces serious as they considered his report. The losses near human space had reached a point where they could no longer be ignored. 37 ships in 6 months, reported. All lost within 50 light-years of human territory. No wreckage, no survivors, no distress calls. Meanwhile, Coalition losses in the same region have stopped completely. High Admiral, Supreme Commander of all forces, leaned forward in his chair. "Your conclusion, Admiral." "The humans are secretly allied with the Coalition. They claim neutrality while systematically destroying our forces and protecting Coalition ships. It is the only explanation that makes sense." The War Council murmured agreement. It did make sense, in a way that comfortable lies often do. The truth that humanity might be something entirely beyond their understanding was too disturbing to consider. "What do you recommend?" and asked. "A demonstration of force," replied. "Not an invasion, but a clear message. Strike their colonial infrastructure, Mars and Luna, cripple their industrial capacity, force them to negotiate." Admiral, an older officer known for caution, raised an objection. "The humans have repeatedly warned that they will defend their territory. Are we certain we want to test that claim? Against 30 ships, one primitive species." Confidence was absolute. "High Admiral, we have been cautious too long. The coalition grows stronger while we hesitate. If we can bring the humans openly to our side, the war ends in our favor." And considered this. The war was not going well. Resources were running low and public support was weakening. A quick victory over the mysterious humans might restore confidence in supremacy. "Very well," and decided. "Take your task force to Sol, demand their surrender. If they refuse, destroy enough of their infrastructure to bring them to the negotiating table. But Admiral, minimize civilian casualties. We want them as allies, not as vengeful enemies." Meanwhile, in the Sol system, Captain Maria Santos commanded the UNS Defiant from the bridge of humanity's most advanced visible warship. She was reading the same sensor reports that had puzzled the aliens for months, but unlike them, she understood exactly what they meant. "Captain," her tactical officer reported, "task force approaching. 31 vessels, including the dreadnought Eternal Glory. They're not trying to hide. Time to Sol space boundary. 18 hours at current speed." Captain Santos nodded calmly. Around her, the bridge crew went about their duties with quiet efficiency. They had trained for this moment, hoped it would never come, but knew it was always possible. "Signal Earth Command," Santos ordered. "Inform them that Protocol 7 may be necessary. Then open a channel to all human vessels in the system." The message that went out was simple: Task Force inbound. Maintain normal operations. Do not engage unless fired upon. Protocol 7 authorization pending. Throughout the Sol system, the message was received by hundreds of human ships. Cargo vessels continued their routes between planets. Mining ships kept working in the asteroid belt. Research stations in the outer system carried on with their experiments. Everything appeared normal. Admiral studied the tactical display as his fleet approached Sol. Sensors show only minimal human activity. One warship, various civilian vessels. No fleet response to our approach. "Sir," his sensor officer reported, "we are detecting those unusual energy signatures again. Much stronger now." "Ignore them, probably industrial equipment." Was focused on the strategic picture. The humans were not responding as he expected. Where was their fleet? Why were they not mobilizing? The task force crossed into Sol space, and Captain Santos opened communications. "Admiral, this is Captain Santos of the UNS Defiant. You are in violation of Terran space. Withdraw immediately or be removed." Almost laughed. "One ship against 31. Captain Santos, I am Admiral of the 4th Fleet. You are outnumbered. Surrender your military assets and join the Dominion or watch your colonies burn." "Admiral," Santos replied, her voice steady, "this is your final warning. Leave now." "Open fire on Mars colony," ordered. "Target their industrial facilities. Show them we are serious." The ships turned their massive weapons toward the red planet. Energy beams lanced down from space, striking the great domed cities that humanity had built on Mars. New Shanghai Dome, home to 15,000 people, took a direct hit. The dome cracked like an egg. Atmosphere rushed out into the thin Martian air. Emergency bulkheads sealed some sections, but not all. 15,000 human beings died in 30 seconds. Throughout the Sol system, every human ship stopped what it was doing. Mining vessels ceased their operations. Cargo ships halted mid-route. Research stations went silent. For exactly 60 seconds there was perfect stillness. Then Captain Santos transmitted on all frequencies. Protocol 7 is now active. Sol Defense Command to all Terran vessels. Weapons free. Hunt them all. Admiral had just made the worst mistake in galactic history. He had fired the first shot at humanity's home. What happened next would be studied by military historians for centuries, assuming any survived to study it. The Space Arounds task force suddenly came alive with contacts that had not been there moments before. Ships materialized from within asteroid fields where they had been hiding for months. Vessels emerged from behind the moons of Jupiter, their heat signatures masked by the planet's radiation. Contacts appeared from impossible places, the corona of the sun itself, where no ship should be able to survive. "Impossible," whispered as his tactical display lit up with hundreds of red contacts. "Our sensors showed nothing. How many ships do they have?" The answer came as the first human weapons fired. These were not the energy beams or missile salvos that defined galactic warfare. These were weapons that bent space itself, that reached through dimensions that did not know existed. "Admiral," his tactical officer screamed. "Hull breach on decks 7 through 12. How did they penetrate our shields?" Looked at his display one last time. His mighty task force was being torn apart by weapons that seemed to ignore every defense known to galactic science. Ships that had ruled space lanes for centuries were dying like insects in a flame. "Signal retreat," he ordered, but the communications officer was already dead, his console sparking and broken. Admiral's last thought was wonder at how completely he had misunderstood everything about humanity. They had not been hiding from the galaxy's war. They had been waiting for someone to be stupid enough to start a war with them. The destruction of New Shanghai Dome took 30 seconds. The silence that followed lasted exactly 60 seconds. Then humanity woke up. Captain Maria Santos stood on the bridge of the UNS Defiant, watching her tactical display transform into something Admiral had never imagined possible. Red contacts appeared everywhere, not just around his task force, but throughout the entire Sol system and beyond. "Sol defense grid is active," her weapons officer reported with cold satisfaction. "All hunter-killer units responding, all stealth platforms online, all distributed assets reporting ready." Santos nodded. For 50 years, humanity had been preparing for this moment. Every asteroid miner was also a weapons platform. Every research station was also a sensor node. Every cargo ship was also a hunter-killer. The entire Sol system was one massive, distributed warship. "Target priority," her tactical officer asked. "Everything with markings," Santos replied. "Start with the task force, then expand outward. Find every military asset within 10 light years and destroy it." Admiral's task force was dying around him. His flagship, the mighty Eternal Glory, shook under impacts from weapons that his shields could not stop. Around him, 30 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy were being systematically destroyed by an enemy he could barely detect. "How many ships are attacking us?" he demanded. "Unknown, sir," his tactical officer replied, panic clear in his voice. "Contacts appear and disappear faster than our sensors can track, estimated hundreds, maybe thousands." Watched the heavy cruiser Vengeance simply vanish from his display. One moment it was there, the next it was expanding gas and debris. No explosion, no warning, it had just stopped existing. "Signal retreat to all ships," he ordered. "Sir, Captain is requesting permission to engage the human flagship directly." Through the chaos, could see the UNS Defiant still hanging in space, apparently alone and vulnerable. "Negative, all ships retreat immediately." But it was too late. As Captain's destroyer closed on the Defiant, space around it suddenly filled with human ships that had not been there moments before. They came from impossible angles, moving at speeds that should have killed their crews, firing weapons that ignored every law of physics understood. The destroyer lasted 12 seconds. Aboard the UNS Defiant, Captain Santos watched the fleet dying with cold satisfaction. "Signal from Mining Platform 7, Captain. They've located the supply depot at station, requesting permission to engage." Granted. Rules of engagement. Total destruction of military assets. Civilian ships are to be disabled and boarded. Any ship that surrenders is to be captured intact. Santos turned to her communications officer. "Open a channel to Admiral." The Admiral's face appeared on screen, blue skin pale with shock. Behind him, his bridge was filled with smoke and the sounds of dying equipment. "Admiral," Santos said calmly, "you are the first alien commander to attack human civilians in our home system. Congratulations. You have achieved something unique in galactic history." "Impossible," whispered. "Our sensors showed nothing. How many ships do you have?" Santos smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "Admiral, we don't have ships. We have a cloud, a swarm, a network. Every piece of technology we've sold to other species, every asteroid we've mined, every probe we've lost over the past century, they're all part of our defense grid." The truth was even more disturbing than could imagine. Humanity had not built a traditional fleet. Instead, they had spent decades seeding the galaxy with technology that looked harmless, but was actually part of a vast distributed intelligence. Mining equipment that could become weapons platforms, sensor probes that could manufacture hunter-killers, trade goods that contained hidden factories. "You've been living inside our weapons system for years," Santos continued, "and you never realized it." On his tactical display, could see the impossible truth unfolding. Human forces were not just in Sol's system, they were everywhere. Outposts throughout the sector were going dark one by one. Supply convoys that had been traveling safe routes for years were simply vanishing. "Sir," his sensor officer called out, "Fleet Command is reporting attacks on positions throughout the entire border region. Simultaneous strikes on 17 different star systems." Felt the bottom drop out of his understanding of reality. This was not a battle, it was an execution. Humanity had been watching, waiting, learning. They knew where every ship was, what every base contained, how every supply line operated. "Captain Santos," he said desperately, "we surrender. Call off your attack." "I'm sorry, Admiral, but I'm not the one you attacked. You killed 15,000 civilians on Mars. The decision to stop this retaliation belongs to people much angrier than me." The Eternal Glory shuddered as another impossible weapon tore through its hull. Looked around his dying bridge and realized he was about to become the first admiral to lose an entire fleet to an enemy he had never understood. "Tell me," he said quietly, "how long have you been planning this?" Santos's expression softened slightly. "Since the first time an alien ship entered our system 50 years ago, Admiral. We knew this day would come eventually. We hoped it wouldn't, but we prepared for it anyway." The energy readings our sensors detected. Manufacturing platforms, hidden throughout the system, building weapons and ships in places you would never think to look. Every human ship you saw was just the tip of the iceberg, Admiral. The real fleet was always invisible. Admiral's last transmission was a warning to Fleet Command. "Do not engage the humans. Repeat, do not engage. They are not what we thought. They are not what anyone thought." Across the galaxy, forces received similar messages from dying commanders. In less than 72 hours, the entire Fourth Fleet ceased to exist. 17 border outposts went dark. 3 supply depots were captured intact. The Free Worlds Coalition, monitoring the destruction from a safe distance, watched in stunned silence as humanity demonstrated capabilities that made their own fleets look like toys. Commander aboard her flagship stared at the tactical displays showing the systematic annihilation of forces. "Signal to Fleet Command," she said quietly. Recommend immediate diplomatic contact with Earth. Urgent priority. Ma'am, her aide asked. We need to make very sure we stay on their good side, replied, because if we don't, we're next. 7 days after the destruction of the Fourth Fleet, Ambassador Sarah returned to Haven Prime. This time, she was not requesting a meeting. She was delivering an ultimatum. The Great Hall was even more crowded than before. Representatives from dozens of species had come to hear what humanity would demand after their devastating show of force. The mood was very different from Sarah's last visit. Where before there had been casual dismissal and polite condescension, now there was genuine fear. High Archon sat in his usual place, but his blue-scaled face was pale. The Dominion had lost 17% of their total fleet strength in a single week. Entire border regions were now defenseless, and no one knew where humanity might strike next. General of the Coalition looked equally concerned. His intelligence officers had reported something that chilled him to his core. During the attacks on positions, Coalition ships in nearby areas had been completely ignored. This suggested that humanity knew exactly who was who and where everyone was at all times. Ladies and respected beings, Sarah began, her voice carrying clearly across the silent hall. Earth's terms are simple and non-negotiable. She activated a holographic display that showed a three-dimensional map of local space. A sphere of light appeared around the Sol system, expanding outward to encompass dozens of star systems. First, immediate ceasefire in all sectors adjacent to the Terran Protection Zone. The sphere pulsed red to emphasize the boundaries. This zone extends 50 light-years from Sol in all directions. Any military action within this area will be considered an act of aggression against Earth. Murmurs of shock filled the hall. 50 light-years encompassed hundreds of inhabited systems, including major population centers and industrial facilities belonging to both factions. Second, war reparations for the Mars colony attack. The Dominion will provide materials and labor to rebuild New Shanghai Dome, plus compensation to the families of those killed. Started to object, but Sarah continued before he could speak. Third, technology sharing agreements. Both factions will provide Earth with complete technical specifications for faster-than-light communication, advanced medical systems, and industrial processes. This sharing will be one way, for obvious reasons. Fourth, formal recognition of human neutrality and territorial claims throughout this region of space. General leaned forward. Ambassador, these terms are essentially demanding surrender from both sides. You're asking us to give up strategic territory and advanced technology while providing nothing in return. Sarah smiled, and everyone in the hall felt a chill. General, I think you misunderstand the situation. We are not asking for anything. We are informing you of the new reality. She gestured, and the holographic display changed. It now showed footage from the past week events that had been classified until this moment. The assembled aliens watched in growing horror as the recordings played. Home fleet patrols found dead in space, their crews alive but unconscious, every computer system wiped clean. Coalition supply convoys that had somehow been redirected to deliver their cargo to human colonies, their crews having no memory of changing course. Most terrifying of all were the recordings from known pirate and mercenary bases throughout the galaxy. Empty facilities, no signs of struggle, no bodies. The occupants had simply vanished. "What have you done?" asked, his voice barely a whisper. "We have established order," Sarah replied calmly. "For 3 years, you have all been fighting a war that has killed billions and destabilized entire regions of space. That war is now over." Ambassador of the Republic raised a trembling hand. "Ambassador, surely you cannot expect to control the entire galaxy. The resources required, the logistics." "We're not controlling anything," Sarah said. "We're simply making it clear that certain behaviors will no longer be tolerated. Any ship of any species that threatens civilian populations or engages in unprovoked aggression will be removed. Any faction that continues this war will find their military assets redistributed. The truth was settling over the assembled delegates like a cold fog. Humanity had not just won a battle, they had fundamentally changed the balance of power in the galaxy. They had demonstrated capabilities that made traditional warfare obsolete. General asked the question everyone was thinking: how many ships do you actually have? Sarah's smile widened. General, you're still thinking in the old way. Ships, fleets, battles between organized forces. We don't fight wars the way you do. She activated another display, this one showing the distribution of human technology throughout known space. Trade routes, mining operations, research stations, communication relays. Everywhere humanity had established a presence over the past 50 years. Every asteroid we've mined contains manufacturing facilities. Every trade good we've sold contains monitoring systems. Every probe we've lost has been building weapon platforms. You've all been living inside our defense network for decades. The implications hit the delegates like a physical blow. Humanity had not been preparing to join someone else's war. They had been preparing to end all wars. This is impossible, protested. No single species can have such reach, such capability. High Archon, Sarah interrupted. Your people have been studying our technology for 3 years. Did you ever figure out how our ships move so fast? How our weapons penetrate your shields? How we manufacture equipment that your scientists say violates known physics? Said nothing, but his silence was answer enough. We are not like you, Sarah continued. We did not evolve on a single world and then slowly spread to others. We became something new during our expansion into space, something adapted to live between stars rather than on planets. She gestured to the display one final time. What you call the human race is actually a distributed intelligence spanning hundreds of star systems. We don't have a fleet, we have a body, and you have been living inside it without realizing it. The hall erupted in panicked voices as the delegates finally understood what they were facing. This was not a negotiation between equals. It was a conversation between children and their new guardian. What do you want from us? General asked desperately. Peace, Sarah replied simply. We wanted to be left alone to develop in our own way. You could have had that. Instead, you chose to drag us into your war. Now you have our attention, and we have decided that the galaxy needs better management. She stood to leave, but paused at the door. The terms I outlined are effective immediately. Any faction that chooses not to comply will discover that we have been very patient up until now. That patience has limits. 6 months later, Captain Maria Santos stood in the observation deck of the rebuilt New Shanghai Dome on Mars. The new dome was even more beautiful than the original, built with a combination of human and alien technology that created something neither could have achieved alone. Ma'am, her aide reported, we're receiving 17 new requests for non-aggression treaties, 3 species we haven't heard from before. Santos nodded, unsurprised. Word of humanity's capabilities was spreading throughout the galaxy. Species that had never shown interest in the local war were suddenly very interested in making sure they stayed on Earth's good side. Tell them to submit formal requests through diplomatic channels, Santos said, and remind them that we're still not interested in conquest or expansion. We just want peace. And if they don't believe that? Santos looked out at the thriving colony below, where humans and aliens worked together to build something better than either could achieve alone. Then they'll learn the same lesson they did. We didn't want to be involved in their wars, but now that we are, we'll decide when they're over.